Turpinājumā mums būs neliela paneļa diskusija, kuru vadīs Maikls, arī angļu valodā. Es gribētu aicināt uz skatuves atpakaļ Sigvardu Krongornu no Castprint. Ervinu Labanovski no Birzī un Mārtiņu Čakste no Chocolate. Over to you, Michael.
Okay. Water helps a little bit. Hi. Come on in, relax, have a seat. Just don't fall asleep like I may do. Okay. So, I've kind of laid out some of the parameters, some of the checklists, and you all have already moved in this direction, be it U.S. or I know one of you has been in the U.S. You're in the U.S. now. And the key thing is for a lot of people out here, it's like, I talked about that comfort zone. What do you see, and I'll let each of you give your own opinion, as some of the challenges of making that first move out?
Should I go first?
Yeah, we'll just run right down the line.
So the first thing is, so in our experience with Castprint is that we are actually experiencing it now, right, this moment. So we are launching in the UK. And for successfully to launch, what I have to do for the next couple of months, I will have to relocate. And why is that? Is first and foremost because in our business, so it's in healthcare, and it's involved in a lot of processes in terms of customer support, technology, and so forth. And one of the things that our partners locally said that, well, even though it's all simple on paper, still you have to be here because Brits like to network and they like to feel and see you. And this is one of the things that previously, for example, we tried before that unsuccessfully in Finland because we didn't go all in that market. We just tried to one step at a time. And in this case, yeah, we're just leaping head first and 100%. So,
could I follow up just with you on that? Because you talked about the UK. How are you dealing with the Brexit situation?
Basically, we do not assume, but what we see and what we believe is that somehow, eventually, it will sort things out. Because what we see on the actual streets, on talking with the people and talking with the British people they are living, all of them understand that in the end of the day, if the hard Brexit will occur, everybody will actually suffer. So nobody wants that. So at some point, common sense will prevail in all this populism in the moment. So from that perspective, we just say, okay, it will sort some out.
Okay. And how about with the Birzī? Have you found your challenges when going out?
Sure, a lot of challenges. One comes in my mind that first, when first client came to us and asked, can we deliver a SAP? We said, of course, everything what you want. And then I realized my mistake that we were too open for frames because sometimes client don't know what kind of product he wants. There's a balance. Sometimes he knows, you have to trust him, but sometimes he comes with idea with different bottles or process of the, and in one moment you understand that you are doing so much job and it's pointless because actually it won't work. Then you have to put the borders, like we do that and we cannot move forward, that's our product. And that was one lesson what I learned, that I have to put boundaries. But we are not in US.
Oh, I thought I saw that.
No, we have send products with the help of Leah and Latvian embassy. And there was a Xavier magazine, Xavier, which is very good known in because of food articles. Mm-hmm. And they helped to find one company in New York which deals with top restaurants, their product are truffles.
Excellent.
And they saw that probably the birch syrup could go also, but we don't have a deal yet.
Okay.
But it's very good,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah. But that's it, how far we went. And we had one time order from Latvian origin-owned restaurant in New York, but we stopped at the custom procedures because to send just a one box, you need more clients to do all the procedures and so on.
I'll just add to what you had mentioned about keeping your lane, if you will. We use that term, your swim lane. That's a big mistake I made, folks, when I started with my company 30 years ago, was what I learned in the worst words in the English language is while we're at it. You know, whether you've got somebody building your home or, you know, oh yeah, well, yeah, okay, well, we're doing that, we'll do that, and suddenly you're way off here, out of your comfort zone, out of your area of expertise, and then that just leads to problems. So, from your standpoint, what have you experienced?
One thing is that with USA, as it is far away, it's like around 35-40 days by sea to the east coast and 55 around to the west coast. And what we realized that we cannot work like with the warehouse in the USA because the retailers are too big. So I would have to keep a lot of stock in the USA, and of course you never know what will be ordered. So that would be quite difficult. And at this point we work only with the retailers or partners who can make pre-orders, so can taking in account the delivery time. Today we deliver to Hy-Vee and Topco private label. Then we deliver right now 5 containers to Costco USA. It will be their Kirkland product, but it will be under the pure chocolate. It's like a chocolate of the world. They have such like 6 candies from different countries, and so we could not manage the business without the partners. So we work with different agents. We have about quite a lot of them. And as you said, one is working in California, another maybe in other states. So you very rarely get like all USA coverage by one agent. And the biggest thing, of course, if you want to get there and to get, of course, this kind of retailers, you need to be patient because it takes like a small order at the beginning. You have to build your references, and of course, when you have, like we have quite many already, the world top 100 retailers working with us and checked our quality and our standards, then of course the big guys are also ready to work with you. But let's say we had one order from Walmart, possibility to deliver a private label, and that I closed down because if you can imagine that for them to buy, let's say, 50 containers, it's no problem.
Right.
But for me, it would be like a total disaster. So this would be very big risk for my business. So I declined it because I need more gradual growth. I was surprised yesterday reading that Valmiera Stiklišķiedra, it's a big company, that they are going bankrupt because they opened the business in USA and did it too fast probably, or investing too much money. They were 113 million company turnover, yes, and so very profitable. And one mistake makes a big problem.
What, and I'll throw this open to any of you, what would you consider the biggest misconception you found in looking outside of your own area for expanding business?
That there will be the same situation as here.
Yes.
The same construction of market, or who is responsible for what. It's never like that.
Yeah, that's quite common, and that's what I was alluding to, is that, you know, you can be the best in your field, and when you go home and the pipe breaks in your bathroom, you have to call a plumber because that's out of your area. And I think those are the kind of things that the more we realize that we need not so much help, but facilitation. We need people who can guide us along so that you can be a success. One of the things that I think is interesting is with Europe kind of forming, I won't say internal alliances, but regions of interest. Do you find certain countries are easier to work in within Europe than others?
Sure, also business culture is different. Example, Sweden, you are quite sure that invoice will be paid in 2 weeks. While with some other countries you work only with prepayment.
Yeah, that's quite common. Anyone else have those experiences?
I would say that Europe is pretty okay, but if you go to China, for instance, you don't understand anything, and you cannot expect anything. It's like mystery. So,
yeah.
And then we see different trends of the chocolate, of course, in every country, and then we see that one product we can sell only in Asia, another product is best going in Europe, and Japan is very different from all the rest Asia. So that's the most important to understand.
Yeah, well, basically, in our case, the same. That's in each country you have different legislature, different regulators in terms of healthcare. So we're working in a very regulated environment. So naturally, in one country, it's much more easier to enter. The regulators more pro-innovation. The other ones is less prone to innovation, and so on. So it really depends on the market. But thanks to, for example, in our case, that we have the European Union, we have the underlying medical device regulation, then it becomes much more easier than, for example, going to the US with FDA and so on. And that's one of the reasons why we're not planning to go there soon enough.
No, that makes sense. And what's interesting, I do a lot of work with the Netherlands, and I know that their ambassador in Lithuania is very enthusiastic about recruiting and helping bio, IT, and medical companies and manufacturers located in the Netherlands, and they have programs that can help. So not that I'm doing a commercial for them, but I would like to ask, have any of you worked with the various AmChams here in this country, or the embassies of the trade people from the embassies of countries that you're looking at?
Now, when we go with Leah to the exhibitions, they very often join also with the embassy. Like recently, I was in Amsterdam, and then the embassy invited some speakers, and it was quite interesting. They told a little bit about the specifics of Netherlands market and what we should be aware of, and the biggest retailers. So yes, yeah.
That's a very good resource what you can use. Official institutions which are there actually to help you. And also this is in Latvia. It's good that I'm working in such a quite small country. And can you imagine that in one of the biggest Chinese exhibition you can get as me, which is a small, really small enterprise. I could get there in state stand. It would never happen if I would be working in France or somewhere else. But of course, from other side looking, that was more like training, because such an exhibition, I could find some partners, but that was too much big level.
Yeah, well, the same here with us is that when we first decided that, okay, so UK will be our next target, the first thing we did actually is contact the Latvian Development Agency's representative office there, and saying, okay, so we'll be in that week in the UK, and are you available? And they said, yeah, sure. And they met with them, talked about our business, talked about the potential in the market, and they provide a lot of contact. And the same thing was with Finland and others. So cheers to Leah for the representative office help. Woo! They're doing a very good job.
Yes, I've been very impressed with what they're doing here. And speaking of that, one of the things that the Baltics have traditionally had a problem with, and that is recognition. Okay, Baltics, especially in America, Baltics, Balkans, what
Europe.
Where is that? Europe. You know, who's the king of Europe now? You know, that kind of thing. So one of the discussions that I've had, a couple of discussions I've had, not just this week here, but also in the past, about the Baltics is, what is your opinion of the three countries kind of joining together to market the Baltics in conjunction with each of your official things, but coming with one voice? I don't want to get anybody in trouble now. So.
I would say no.
No? Okay.
I would say that we should market as a part of Nordic Europe.
Ah, even better.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think that Benelux is a good example, and of course we are a very small market, and altogether we are around 8 million, so it's like a normal country, and I would be more than for that. Mm-hmm. Because in the world, even in Europe, people know Lithuania and Riga, because
right.
Riga is the only city and Lithuania is the only country. But there is a problem, of course, that we are very proud countries, each of us, because we,
right.
We are the best in basketball, better than Lithuanians, and so on. And it's very difficult to join because Estonians think that they are more Finnish and Nordic than we are, and it will take time. But it has all the logic to be that way.
There's also, I think it's more easy to sell something which there is information. So Nordic Europe, it's already some stereotypes and good ones. But if you have to campaign for Baltic, so mostly you have to start with a blank page. And the question, do we have enough resource to do that? And what you mentioned, cooperation between Baltic countries usually is more declarative than in real life.
Yeah. I would say that your suggestion is probably realistic because I did one of these typical every 5 minutes in a different city economic development tours with the U.S. Department of Commerce Select USA Group. And it was Oslo, Copenhagen, Malmo, Gothenburg, Stockholm, Helsinki, and Tallinn in 4 days. And but again, where I was going with this is that it was marketed as the Nordic Roadshow. So I think, as we think about approaching our markets, it's important to do that. The one thing I will share with you, and this is just my own experience and opinion, is that for companies that are looking at products or looking to buy products from a region, they like to have a consolidated kind of approach. So I think that what I've seen so far is that each of the organizations that you have here are actually functioning very well, both independently and in cooperation. So, and that's why, my involvement with the Baltic American Chamber is able to bring all three together in the U.S., but still keep the distinctiveness of each of your countries, be it basketball or whatever. I want to allow enough time for questions from the audience because this panel is fantastic. But I just want to share with you something that's very personal to me. On the first Sunday in March 1991, I stood in Republic Square in Riga as the vote came in. I was doing some work here on helping, at that point it was still the Soviet Union, but it was helping Latvia and the cities, kind of how do we attract Western business. And I was so proud when that happened. Now, my heritage is not any of the countries, but to see that happen and to be here, and then to be back a number of times in 2000, and actually been here in Siguldā, visiting the park and the grotto and here in the city center, and to see where you've come now. Now, I'll be in Vilnius tomorrow, so I'll be able to say that, but most of my time I've spent in Tallinn and here, so I thank all of you for what you've done, and I know that those in the know in Western Europe and in the US know that the Baltics have far exceeded many other countries who came into the EU in the past 10 years. So for that, I'm pleased. Now, I'd like to open it up for questions. If I can see any. I'll do this and I'll probably fall off like Madonna.
Stage diving.
Okay, I know there's got to be some questions. Yes, there we go.
You brought up on your presentation, Michael, a good thing about knowing the labor market in the U.S. and where you are. And then, Mārtiņš, you mentioned Valmela Glass and their recent trouble and their filings for protection the other day. And what happened there, Valmela Glass went into Georgia, into a very rural area, good crossroads, highways everywhere, built the plant, hired the best in that location in a very rural area of Georgia, a million miles from anywhere. It'd be like going to the furthest area of Les Galles and building a giant plant. And they built it. Their orders exceeded what they could produce there immediately, and they had a 10-year plan. They boosted the 10-year plan to a 2-year plan, 3-year plan. They had to double, triple their workforce. Their workforce wasn't prepared to do the work, and they were based on my knowledge of Latvian workers who are very productive, very engaged, very innovative, and love what they do. And you get into rural America, the workers, they want a paycheck. And then they want to go fishing on Friday. and that's it. And that was their number one problem. They understood the market, and they got a lot of benefits by going to Dublin, Georgia, but they did not have the available workforce to do what they needed to do locally.
That's very true. I can give you an example. One of my clients that I helped build, or they're about to build their first manufacturing plant in the U.S., is a bus company called Van Hol, based out of Belgium. You may see their coaches around there. They're very prolific with both transit and over-the-road coaches, the big tourist buses. So they looked at a number of cities. What they wanted was labor that didn't cost as much as some of the bigger cities, but they wanted labor that understood the automotive market and machinery, manufacturing. So they were down to 3 cities. One was Jacksonville, Florida. That was me. I didn't tell them to do that. They chose it based on what they saw, and I showed them. Birmingham, Alabama, a big steel manufacturing plant, heavy manufacturing city, and then a small town outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, up in the mountains. You say, why Tennessee? Well, all around that area were small to medium-sized automotive manufacturing operations, anywhere from 5 to 50 people, and their workforce was there. The university had a training program, so all of that went into account that this was a good place to be. But again, it took, and I'm not saying it was me, they got a lot of advice from a lot of people. That's the key, is to understand all of the aspects. And that advice is out there. You can find it. Another question. Oh, sorry.
In your experience, have you seen what are the industries or niches where the companies from this part of the world are doing great in US?
Yes, and I think that those niches are exactly the niches that you have developed. First off, for Estonia, no question, cybersecurity. It is in such high demand, and anyone in that sector knows that Tallinn and Estonia have developed the top. After all, they keep getting attacked every other hour, so they know how to do it. In the biofield, and it's biomedical medical devices, which you're doing, those areas are, as I said, Boston and the Southeast. The Southeast, for example, where I am, we have Mayo Clinic, one of the tops in the world. You have big hospital complexes. And the key thing are the universities. The universities are turning out all sorts of new product development. In Florida, for example, I don't know how many of you drink Gatorade, but that was invented at the University of Florida. And the Gator comes from the nickname for the football team, the Gators, or alligators, for those of you who don't know those crazy things. But more importantly, that's where, if you're looking at low to medium cost to make the connections, it's around these key university cities like Raleigh, Durham, with the University of North Carolina, Duke University, Austin, Texas, both IT and medical, fantastic. Houston for medical. And then, as I said, some of the key manufacturing, the specialist manufacturing, there are a lot of key areas that you have. So I would just sum it by saying every major sector that you're doing now is recognized as needed in the U.S. But you can't go in and just say, here I am, okay, who wants me? Another question. We've got lots of time. We're just going to stay up here. Oh, here we go.
It's not working, so I'm going to yell. Oh, no, it is, yeah. So what are the unnecessary sectors, like the sectors I shouldn't move in? I mean,
okay. It's a very good question, and that's the point I was making.
Arms industry.
Don't go into a market that's oversaturated with people already there. So, don't manufacture shoes, although now you may, because China's cutting them all off, and that's where we get 99% of our shoes in America is from China. No, it would be heavy manufacturing, electronic parts, unless they're very specialized. Automotive is very difficult right now unless you have something brand new that could revolutionize the industry. Software is such a broad term. Anything that is generic, like accounting or those kind of things, no, I wouldn't do it. However, if you have a software program that deals with medical data management, that is a critical area in the U.S. right now, because so many records are out there in hospitals, and what they're all looking at is trying to consolidate and manage that data to see where the trends are. So I kind of gave you, here's one that's still pretty good, but general manufacturing. The key is take a look at the U.S., see what's being done in the U.S. right now, but don't be don't be thrown off. Don't be concerned. If you have something that can change the current market, then by all means go in. But just be careful when you go in that you have it's ready. It's either ready for market or it's already being sold. Because the most difficult thing is to be the startup that shows up, and I get these calls all the time. Okay, I want to start this in the US. Can you find me a partner? Yeah, we might be able to do that. And the question I would ask is, well, are you doing this now? What's your annual turnover? What's your financing? And, well, I don't have any of that yet. Okay. Go back, get all that in place, and then you're ready to come in. If you're going into China, I guarantee you, whatever it is you do, they will steal it and do it before you can make a sale. And I mean, I'm not being anti-Chinese. They do a lot of good work. But intellectual property is something they have not put in their dictionary yet. So you just have to know. The typical thing that happens to a company when you go into China is, first off, it's mandatory that you have a partner, a Chinese partner. Then once you have that Chinese partner, they're going to say, okay, I need to see all of your intellectual work so I can manufacture this or do it. And then once they have that, suddenly the door's closed and the company opens up next door by the same person and they're outselling you. So you got to really understand that. Yes, sir.
Do you ever recommend to your clients to develop a test market before they try to go into the big market? The reason I say that, for instance, in Canada, if somebody wants to go into the Ontario region, for instance, I would normally recommend that they go into London first, which has a population of 200,000, as opposed to going into Toronto, which is 3 or 4 million. Okay, and then you take your knocks in London and you find out whether your product sells there, and it's been proven that if it sells in London, it'll sell in Toronto. But if you try to enter the Toronto market where everybody's going to Toronto, okay, you're not going to make it. Now, we hear people saying, okay, we're going to go into the US, we're going to go to New York, it's a big market. and like Pura is saying, yeah, if somebody gives you a big order and they have to send 10 containers a week, it's going to be pretty tough to meet. But if you're in a little test market, you can grow it right there and expand from there. Do you ever do that sort of stuff?
Yes. There's a couple of things that we've done in the past, and you guys jump in if you have any thoughts about that. I'm trying to dominate this thing, even though I am. First off, going to Canada, I think you're going to see a lot more Americans if 2020 goes the wrong way. But what we recommend is exactly the test market. First off, we try to say, where are you in your own market now? Have you scaled up to a point where you can actually meet customer demand? What is your customer market here or wherever you are before you go to the next one? And if you're going to go to that one, that's what I mentioned, that low-hanging fruit. That's an example of low-hanging fruit. Start out in a country that's similar to the bigger market and try that. The other thing that I've recommended for our clients to do is to do kind of we call it the special deal, where you want to get visibility in a new market. So you go to a company that you actually want to be your customer, and you say, if you buy our product or our service, we'll give it to you either at 20%, 50%. If it's a service, we'll do it for nothing in partnership. You try it. Do this for 6 months. And then after that, if it's a success, we can go out. Then you can say, oh yeah, look who's using our product. So sometimes you have to give up a little to get more, to get visibility. Yes,
If I can contradict you
okay.
on 2 points. you mentioned two things that you shouldn't bother with here. One of them was in, IT development like that because you're competing with a big market in the U.S. I disagree with that because we have some of the brightest IT groups here coming out of the schools. And Monetizer, which is becoming very successful in the U.S., they sell in the U.S., but they do the development here in Latvia. Mm-hmm. 3 young Latvians came out of here. A music production company, studio production company, is a Latvian-based company. And another thing, as far as you mentioned, electronics or manufacturing, there's a new trend coming out in the U.S. for high-end analog electronics. During the Soviet period, everybody in the U.S. who had amplifiers or built amplifiers knew that Latvia made the best vacuum tubes in the world, the highest quality vacuum tubes, and that stopped. There are areas where Latvia, as a small country and a small group, can produce specialized stuff that's very high value to market in the U.S. So there's areas where you would assume, oh, they have that in the U.S. already. Yes, nothing Latvia makes that we don't already have, but you make it good, you make it quality at a good price, we will buy it.
I would totally agree with you, and I apologize if I gave the wrong impression. What I was trying to say was that if you were going in, for example, with an IT solution for bookkeeping or something like that, you're up against the big guys. And what I was trying to point at is if you have a new variation that's going to change the old ways in IT, or if you're serving a niche that meets a new area. For example, nanotechnology. My God, that is the biggest area right now in the States. Anything to do with IT and nanotechnology. There was just an article I read yesterday that a baby was just saved with the first gene therapy. So anything, and that to me, it's science. I mean, it's science, of course, it's science. It's technology. It's medical. And its implementation of medical device in some way. These are the kind of things, absolutely. So I agree with you. And to your point about the tubes, there are so many niche areas that old farts like me still have radios with tubes that, not that I listen to it, but it's there. No, seriously, there are a lot of niche things that you can do and make a living on. What you have to keep in mind is you need to find where those markets are. For example, I know companies in Denmark, and they have this almost direct market to a little town in California that is known as Little Denmark. You go there, full of tourists. And they just sell Danish products. So, and there are other places. So look at the Baltic diaspora. You know, where are people living now and who will buy the kind of products that you talked about? That's a market. And then maybe you build on that. So I didn't mean to discourage anybody from thinking about new. I was just trying to say that if you're going up against and you're just coming in with another product that is pretty similar to what's already out there, it's going to be tough sledding. But if you're coming in with something that's going to revolutionize it or, you know, change everything, then that's the kind of thing you have to do. Yes, sir. Oh, I have to be careful as my host now.
You should not. Andris Ozols is the host. Actually, Michael, thank you. I just appreciate that you were also comparing Baltic countries and just giving a hint, why don't we work closer together? And you know, all these three countries are very friendly countries, and also we celebrated our centenary. So it gives a fantastic feeling of this belonging to innovative region, being close to Scandinavia, and challenging also business in United States, in UK. But what you touched, and also guys commented, and I like what Mārtiņš said, that every country is proud and claims uniqueness. We have a difficulty which is not easy to overcome. It is rather a comment, not a question. And the difficulty is how to name ourselves. We are very thankful to our also representative offices doing good job abroad, but this is a question of identity. And I have been to India, to China, in Pan-Baltic, to Japan, in Pan-Baltic seminars, and involving Nordic country, was what you suggested, Sigvard, Nordic. And abroad, Nordic is a way of skiing. Nobody does understand what Nordic is. It is a problem of a name. And then I said Northern Europe. Northern Europe is part of Poland, part of UK, part of France. Also doesn't work. And then we decided to be Scandinavia and the Baltics, because Scandinavia is a fantastic brand. And then Finnish gentleman, Ulari Alamets, big boss of agency of Finland, he said, we are not on peninsular. You should write Scandinavia, Baltics, and Finland. Then, of course, everybody said, no, Finns, you want too much. You are not even the Vikings, you know. But they said, we are not on peninsular, and they were belonging to former Baltics. At the end, we understood that if we are not allowed to identify with Scandinavia, to explain that Baltic is not Balkan, we are losing too much time, you know, and then at the end we are standing exactly where we were, though that region branding doesn't work as country branding does. So, so their proper advice might be needed. Not sporadic advice here out of blue in the conference, but in tourism it does work properly, because ferry liner comes to Riga, Klaipėda, Tallinn, that's nice. In other industries we are absolutely jealous to each other. So. But once again, Michael, thank you very much for bringing this up, and also this pride comes out. You see that we are really thinking our genes are good. We are almost also like a Vikings. We are innovative. We belong to innovative area. So, thank you. That was a comment.
Well, I appreciate the comment, and I'm a big fan of all three countries, having been here many times. So I understand that. I'll give you an example of why I brought that up. I had a client called Amgen, pharmaceutical out of the States, looking to set up their corporate headquarters in Europe. And they sent over a team who were supposed to do all the work and, you know, make the choices. They narrowed it down to 3 countries: Ireland, Denmark, and the Netherlands. So in Ireland, the CEO then came over to look at the situation, and they rolled out the red carpet and limos and dinners and the whole thing. And he said, you know, when my team was here, I appointed them, the leadership question. They make the decisions. They give me the recommendation, but they're the ones, and you didn't really pay attention to them. So out went Ireland. Then in the Netherlands, it was really close between Denmark and the Netherlands. And then all of a sudden, you have, now here's a country that's 2 hours by 3 hours. I mean, that's the American view. It's pretty small. So suddenly 2 or 3 regions, provinces within that country started contacting companies, you know, don't go to that place, come here, we're better than they are. And they said, listen, if this is the fractured approach you're having, forget it. Denmark, they all came together and said, we don't care where you go, we stand together as a country. So I just brought that up, not to say that you have to give up your identities, but when you're out there marketing, it helps to represent a concept, an idea, a vision. And what your vision is the best of all. The best of all 3. So I just share that with you, and we're down to 48 seconds, and I made it. Thank you very much.